In the depths of London's underground, where millions walk without looking up and conversations are swallowed by the sound of trains, something extraordinary happened, something that made time pause and strangers weep. His name was Tyrese Cole. 19 years old, quiet, wiry, with soft dreadlocks and a second-hand guitar that bore the scars of every song he ever played. He wasn't a name. He wasn't a face on a screen. He was just a boy who stood near the Northern Line escalators at King's Cross Station and played as if each chord was a letter he never got to send. Tyrese grew up in a council flat in Lewisham. Life was tight, 2 bedrooms, 5 people, noise in every corner but not much joy. His mother, Yvonne, was the heart of that home. A nurse with tired eyes and a laugh that could disarm any sadness. She worked long hours, fed her children before herself, and somehow managed to make broken things feel whole. But even strong women have breaking points. On a cold October morning, just 2 weeks after Tyrese turned 17, she was gone. No warning. No signs the world would understand. She took her own life, and with it, she took the sound from the flat. Not literal silence, the TV still played, buses still hissed past the window, but an emotional silence, like someone had turned down the volume of love. No one knew what to say. The NHS was overwhelmed. Therapy required waiting lists. Support groups were full. And so, like many young men in overlooked postcodes, Tyrese carried his grief in silence. But in that silence, something stirred. A voice. Not the kind you speak with, but the kind that rises when you're too full of ache and need to let it out. He found his mother's old CD player under the bed and listened to her favorites, Clapton, Tracy Chapman, Lauryn Hill. One day, walking past a charity shop, he saw a guitar in the window. The paint was chipped, one string was missing. He bought it with car wash money, took it home, and taught himself to play by mimicking sounds, pausing YouTube videos, and praying the neighbors wouldn't complain. The first song he learned, in full, was Tears in Heaven. Not because it was easy. But because it sounded like the question he asked himself every night, would it be the same, if I saw her again? The chords were raw. His fingers bled. He played until dawn, until his body gave out, until the song felt less like a tribute and more like a resurrection. He wasn't playing for attention. He was playing for survival. By 18, he had a busker's permit and a spot he'd claimed as his own, just near the escalators at King's Cross. It wasn't glamorous. The air down there was always stale. People moved like shadows. But Tyrese didn't need a stage. He needed hearts. And though most commuters kept their eyes locked on their phones, a few always stopped. A cleaner, on her break. A toddler who danced with the rhythm. An elderly man who clapped slowly, eyes wet. Tyrese saw these people, not their clothes, not their pace. He played every day, rain, shine, heartbreak. And then, on a gray Wednesday in March, everything changed. That morning, he'd almost stayed home. His fingertips were cracked. He hadn't eaten since the day before. But something in him said go. He arrived early, tuned the old guitar, and began to play Tears in Heaven. Slowly. Gently. With a voice you could mistake for breaking glass or whispered scripture. And the station changed. A woman in a red coat slowed down, clutching her handbag like a shield. Her shoulders began to shake. A man in a suit paused, tears brimming without warning. A nurse dropped her coffee. A teenage boy took off his headphones. A homeless man sat cross-legged, hands over his mouth. One by one, they stopped. Not because of the music, but because of the truth in it. In that tunnel of concrete and echo, Tyrese gave them something they hadn't felt in a long time, the permission to feel. When the final note rang out, it was not silence that followed, it was reverence. The kind of stillness that cities rarely allow. And then, softly, someone clapped. Then another. And another. It wasn't a roar, it was gratitude. Tyrese didn't bow. He didn't smile. He just closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Unknown to him, someone had filmed it. A tourist from Bristol, tears on her cheeks, posted it on TikTok with the caption, "A boy just made an entire tube station cry." By morning, the video had 3 million views. Tyrese, who'd gone to sleep with a broken kettle and a head full of worry, woke up to messages from every corner of the internet. Some asked who he was. Some just said thank you. Others poured out confessions of their own grief. "I lost my dad this year. You gave me a voice. I haven't cried in 5 years. Until now." The media reached out. BBC did a segment. Local radio invited him to speak. But Tyrese didn't chase headlines. When asked what he wanted, he said simply, "I don't want to be famous. I want to make music that catches people when they're falling. Like my mum used to catch me." With donations flowing in, he didn't buy trainers or new clothes. He didn't upgrade his flat or take trips. Instead, he rented a small space in Peckham, a forgotten room above a shuttered cafe, and started the Chord Project. A quiet revolution. A space for teens who, like him, had known loss too early. He brought in local musicians, youth workers, even therapists who volunteered their time. The sessions weren't about perfection. They were about release. Girls who used to self-harm began writing songs. Boys who never spoke began to strum. Lyrics replaced fists. Rhythm replaced rage. Word spread. Schools took notice. Even the council offered support. But the core of it remained simple: music as medicine. Music that didn't fix the wound, but gave it a voice. A year after that day at the Tube, Tyrese returned to King's Cross. This time, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 12 young people from the Chord Project. Nervous. Shaky. Holding instruments with trembling hands. Together, they sang. Not in perfect harmony, but in perfect honesty. As they played, the station remembered. People stopped again. Not just for talent. But for truth. In a city that forgets names the moment they're out of sight, Tyrese had done something rare. He didn't carve a brand. He carved a space. A safe space. For feeling. For healing. For remembering that beneath every coat, behind every stern face, walks a person who once cried when no one was looking. He never made it to the big stages. Never signed a record deal. But in every tube station where his song had once echoed, he left something more powerful than fame. He left hope. Not all heroes carry microphones. Some carry grief. Some carry broken guitars. Some carry the memory of a mother who never got to hear the final verse. And somewhere in London tonight, someone's rushing to catch a train. They won't look up. They won't know his name. But if they listen carefully, beneath the hum of footsteps and the rattle of carriages, they might still hear a voice. A voice that once brought the Tube to tears.